But Hajin suddenly felt doubt. He wondered, what if the target was human? The target being a jinn was not a certainty, it was just a rumor. This made Hajin doubt, what if he was not a jinn, would that make him a killer? Hajin's body stiffened when he came to that conclusion. He knew that he was in his novel, and they were just characters he created, but now, they felt really alive to him. Hajin then recalled his parents in his previous life. It managed to strengthen his resolve. Even if they really feel alive now, he will spend at least 10 years in this world, or, he might even be here longer than that, therefore he should not get too carried away in this kind of situation. Even if they really feel like living human beings, this place is not the real world, but a world in a novel. Hajin then emphasized it again, this is just a novel. Right after that, a very loud gunshot then sounded which shocked the birds around. Hajin's bullet was very fast and directly hit the target. The people around him then screamed in panic when they saw the incident. The atmosphere suddenly became chaotic at this time, and the boss watched all the events silently. She was silent for a moment looking at the target's corpse. She then muttered, a jinn does not bleed. Somewhere in Turin, Hajin was seen sitting alone there. He seemed to go straight there after completing his mission. He just sat there without doing anything. I don't know what was on his mind at the moment. In the middle of his silence, he was then surprised when someone suddenly called him. That person was the boss. The boss without further ado immediately sat on the chair in front of him. Seeing her, Hajin confusedly asked, how did you know I was here? The boss replied that she was tracking him. Hajin was then surprised that she could do that. The boss then praised him. She said that he had done his job well. Hearing that, Hajin said that he was happy to hear that. After saying that, Hajin then drank his coffee, but his hands looked a little shaky at the moment. The boss noticed that, looks like that mission took a huge toll on his mind. This was probably his first time killing a person. The boss then asked him about his feelings about it. Hajin said that it was a little difficult because it was his first time. The boss was not surprised to hear that answer. Making money was not easy, however, only money could be trusted, especially for people like them. Hajin was then surprised to hear that. Hajin then asked about it. The boss explained, because we live a life without a family. Hajin's face stiffened hearing that. He paused for a moment. After organizing his thoughts, he then said that he thought it was true. The boss smiled slightly at that. She was happy to see Hajin quickly recover from his shock. The more she saw him, the more she liked him, even though Hajin had driven her away. But in fact the boss had secretly watched the course of his mission from the beginning. When she saw the bullet he fired, something that destroyed the mana barrier that enveloped the entire mansion, she realized that it was an anti-magic. The boss thought that if her eyes were not wrong, Kim Hajin would be the ace that would kill that person. Before the meeting of the chameleon troop members who discussed the recruitment of Kim Hajin, Drun at that time asked her, why does it have to be him? Is there a special reason? He is sure there are other people who are also strong and have anti-magic abilities. He is confused. Why do they have to choose an inexperienced cadet? Hearing that, another member with African American stature then asked him, you're objecting now after all this time? Drun said it was not an objecting, he was just curious about the reason. After a moment of silence, the boss then said, it's the eyes. They were both then confused at that. Drun then jokingly said to her, you are more romantic than expected. His friend was completely speechless at his words, not paying attention to the two of them. The boss then thought, Kim Hajin, he has a lonely look in his eyes. A look that says he can't trust anyone. It's the same look she had at that time. Thinking about it, the boss wondered, is that why I pay more attention to him? Because I don't want him to take the same path as me. In the middle of her musings, Hajin suddenly said to her, he asked, can you get the reward in kind, like an item? The boss said that it was not a problem. She then asked, is there any item you want? Hearing that, Hajin said that he would leave it to her to choose it. Hajin said that not without reason. It was because he knew the boss had many good and expensive items, but she didn't know about the price, so Hajin thought he might get an item that was more valuable than the promised reward. The boss then said that she understood, to celebrate you joining us, but, Hajin suddenly interrupted her words. He said that he had not agreed to join. The boss was then shocked to hear that. While scratching his cheek, Hajin then said, I'm the one that's deciding which group I join. But I felt like it's too early to make that decision right now. The boss was really speechless to hear that. She really couldn't guess the contents of his head. It was already midnight with the moon that could be seen clearly in the night sky. after completing his mission in his meeting with the boss, Hajin then returned to the dormitory. Hearing the door slowly open, Evangel, who was originally asleep, then woke up. While rubbing her eyes, she then called Hajin. Hajin was then surprised when he saw Evangel sleeping on the sofa. He then asked her, "Why are you sleeping there?" Evangel said that she was waiting for him to come home. While hugging him, Evangel then welcomed him. He thanked him for his hard work. Hajin gasped at that. This was a feeling he had never felt since he first entered this world. He then hugged Evangel back. The scene felt so heartwarming. To be honest, he had already realized that they were not just characters in the novel, but also breathing and living human beings. Hajin then gasped when he suddenly remembered the scene of Seaman's death. He then tightened his hug to Evangel. Evangel was then confused when she felt Hajin's body suddenly trembling. Hajin suddenly felt scared at this time. He wondered, would this situation continue to repeat itself when he tried to return to his world? If so, how many times would there be? Time passes. We finally arrive when the second midterm exam finally begins. However, this midterm exam is not as lively as the first. With the many incidents that occurred during the previous midterm exam, Cube does not allow outsiders to enter, although this is different from the original storyline in the novel, but Hajin didn't really care about it. This was just a vague part that he wrote without much details, so he also didn't really remember the contents. On his way to the exit, Hajin then saw the Cube students who looked very sluggish at this time. They complained about today's exam, which seemed so difficult for them. They even planned to report to the professors that the exam was too difficult. They seemed to be exhausted from the written exam. However, the day passed quickly for him, who again got first place in the written exam. While looking at his smartwatch, Hajin thought that he should go to the nursing home that Hosiop told him about as soon as possible, but someone suddenly called him at this time. That person was Nayun. Seeing her, Hajin then confusedly asked, "What's wrong?" Nayun asked, "Do you want to go to the study room?" Hajin replied no. He said that he wanted to go out. Nayun was then surprised to hear that. She then asked him, "Do you not want to study?" Hajin answered no. He said that he did not need to study. Nayun could only sigh in frustration hearing that. She then asked him, "Then, do you have some kind of summary notes?" But Hajin again said no. Seeing her depressed look, Hajin confusedly wondered, what was wrong with her again. Nayun then weakly called him. She asked him to help her a little. She said that she was a mess in today's written exam. She heard that just remembering the important parts can help her get 10 points more, so, with a pitiful look, Nayun then asked him to please help her study. Hajin was surprised to see that. He then asked her, "Why don't you just ask Yona? She might be better at summarizing and teaching others." Nayun gasped at that. While bowing her head, she then said that she had a fight with Yona. Nayun suddenly got an idea at this time. She then asked him, "How about this? I'll buy you a good meal." But, before she could finish her sentence, Nayun was then surprised when she saw Hajin who had left in front of her. Seeing that, Nayun then angrily called him. The reason why Hajin immediately left Nayun was because he was being chased by time at the moment. After a while traveling, he finally arrived at Sunshine Haven. This was the nursing home where Fernan Jesus, Tomer's father, lived. While Hajin was knocking on the door, the voice of an old lady was then heard who asked him to wait for a while. When the old lady arrived, she then asked him, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Hajin was then about to convey his needs, but the old lady suddenly became enthusiastic when she saw him. She seemed to recognize him. She asked, "Aren't you Kim Hajin?" Hajin was then shocked and confused at that. He still couldn't process what he had just heard. When he thought hard about it, he then realized something. He just remembered that the body he was currently possessed was once the body of a man named Kim Chundong. Kim Chundong was not just a character in a novel but a real person. He must have his own life and relationships that he didn't know about. When she saw him, the old lady then asked, "It's been almost a year since you last came to visit, right?" She then invited him to enter. Hajin still couldn't process the situation completely. He then hesitantly went inside and said, "Long time no see." He also asked if she was okay. When they got inside, the old lady said that the situation here never changed. While Hajin was looking around the nursing home, he then saw an old man waving his hand at him. He greeted him, "Long time no see, Hajin." Not only that old man, the other old men also looked enthusiastic when they saw him. They all seemed to recognize him. Hajin could only be silent seeing it. The scene seemed to cause ripples in his heart. The old lady then asked him, "So, what brings you here today?" Hajin was confused for a moment how to answer her question. He then said that he was looking for Mr. Jesus. Hearing that, the old lady then asked, "The one from South America, right?" She then said that he was a quiet person, all he did was talk to him a little. Hajin was surprised to hear that. He wondered, did Chundong know Fernan? He felt that this must be something that the co-author added to the storyline in this part. It was not so bad this time. This was a good thing for him. Hajin then asked, "I wonder if he left anything." Hearing that, the old lady then remembered for a moment. She then said that he did not ask for anything in particular, but it seemed that there was something he left. If there was indeed something he left, Hajin knew that it was a letter. The old lady was surprised that Hajin knew that. Hajin was grateful that it was still the same. The old lady then confusedly asked him, "How did you know?" Hajin did not answer her question and immediately asked her where the letter was now. Hajin did not really know what Kim Chuandong's real personality was like, but judging from the treatment of the people here, he was sure that he had a good relationship with the people here. Hajin then said that he had a promise with him. The old lady was silent for a moment hearing that. While cleaning her glasses, she said that she thought it made sense that he left something for him, because he was always willing to talk to anyone and be their friend. The old lady smiled as she recalled the memories. She then told Hajin to go to the Siaho Memorial Park. The letter will be with his remains. After that, Hajin then went straight to the Siaho Memorial Park. When he got there, Hajin couldn't help but think, "I have done so many things here that I have never done before in the real world." After walking for a while, Hajin then arrived at Area 17, first line, number 4, that was the location of the letter. After that, Hajin then searched the shelves there. Shortly after that, he then finally found the letter. He was grateful because it was still here, but when Hajin was about to take the letter, he suddenly felt hesitant. He already knew the contents of the letter. He wondered, "I don't need to open this letter, right? At least I'm not the first person who has to read this." But Hajin immediately threw away all his doubts. He realized that there was a chance that the co-author did some tricks here. If the contents of the letter changed, everything would be very complicated. So, Hajin decided to read it. Meanwhile elsewhere, Yona is listening to a report from her subordinate at this time. The report was about Kim Hajin's past life. Her subordinate reported, before he entered Cube at the age of 11, there were many records of him doing volunteer work at orphanages or nursing homes. Yona was surprised to know Hajin did such things. She wondered, was that the reason why he was out so often? There were many bad rumors about him. She didn't expect this to be the truth behind him. Although that didn't mean she believed the rumors. He grew up as an orphan, and entered the military academy agency when his talent was awakened. It was a life story that underwent a big change for the good. Yona thought, if I were him, I would definitely throw the bad past I had into the trash. But Hajin chose to remember his past. No, maybe he reached out to others to rediscover his past. He did not use his power as a tool to attract attention, but only used it without others knowing when they needed help. While that's not aligned with her values, she have no choice but respect him for it. Yona felt that Hajin was really an incredible person. She then asked her subordinates, "Do we have more important information about his past, such as his birthplace?" Her subordinates replied no, they were still working on it, but that was the only information they could get. She apologized to her. Hearing that, Yona then told her to look harder. She understood. Her subordinates then continued their report. They received a request from the Korean mafia to track down an assassin. One of their officers was murdered and it was said that the assassin was from Korea. Hearing the name of the Korean mafia, Yona then thought, she had wanted to contact them for something related to relic smuggling. Hearing the report made her think maybe she could propose more favorable conditions for them. Yona then said that she understood. She asked, "Can we track down this assassin?" Her subordinate replied. There was a newbie named Kim Hosiop who joined them. He was quite useful. She then sent a file containing his data to her. Reading the file, Yona was pensive for a moment. While Yona was getting a mission to track him down, Hajin himself was currently reading the letter left by Fenrir Jesus. But after he read the entire contents of the letter, he did not find any changes. He then put the letter back into the envelope. This was a relief for him, in the current situation. This was the only answer that the Truth Agency could provide. While Tomer was leaning her head in her hands, her smartwatch suddenly beeped at this time. When she opened the smartwatch, and checked the content of the notification she got, she was then shocked. The notification contained a message sent by the Truth Agency saying that they had found Fernan Jesus. This was such exciting news for Tomer. they told her to send the specified payment amount if she wanted to hear their reply. After some time passed, the Cube cadets finally successfully completed all the written exams. Kim Soo-hyuk then announced, with this last test, the written exam officially ended. After praising their work, he then invited them to leave. They were very happy to hear that. After leaving the class, Ha-jin then went to the vending machine to buy a drink, but someone suddenly called him at this time. Hearing that, Ha-jin then turned to the person. The person turned out to be Na-yeon. She asked, "What will you do after the exam ends?" Ha-jin was a little confused by her question. He then replied, "Of course I will prepare for the practical exam." Na-yeon was surprised to hear that he was already going to prepare for it even though there was still one more week. No wonder he became a top student. Na-yeon then remembered something. She said that she wanted to return something. Ha-jin was then confused to hear that, while giving a book to him. Na-yeon then thanked him for lending it to her. The book seemed to be a kind of summary notes that Na-yeon asked him a few days ago. Na-yeon happily thanked him once again. She thought he would leave without giving it to her. Hearing that, Ha-jin then smiled apologetically. He said that he was in a hurry at that time. Na-yeon didn't mind that. The important thing was that he had lent it to her. His summary notes were very useful to her. He was really good at capturing the key points. Ha-jin laughed awkwardly at that. These are actually notes that he got by hacking Yona's personal database, but Ha-jin certainly wouldn't tell that to her. Na-yeon continued, "To show my gratitude, I will treat you, after the practical exam, how about we go there?" Hearing that, Ha-jin then confusedly asked, "Where?" Na-yeon answered, "How about Hanyung Pavilion?" She said that she would take Kim Soho too. Ha-jin was surprised to hear the name of the place. He wondered, did she mean the super luxurious Korean restaurant that's in Gangwon-do, that Hanyung Pavilion? Ha-jin drooled just imagining the menus there, but Ha-jin said that he wouldn't come. Na-yeon was then surprised to hear that. She then asked, why, although Ha-jin really wanted to come and taste the dishes there, but he also had to prepare for that incident, which would happen after the practical exams. He then said that he was busy. If she really wanted to go there, he then told her to go with Soho. Na-yeon was shocked to hear that. With a blushing face, she then asked, "Are you being jealous right now?" Ha-jin was then shocked to hear that. He even splashed his drink. While looking at her, Ha-jin then asked, "What nonsense is that?" Na-yeon blushingly replied, "Never mind." She told him to forget about it if it's not the case. Na-yeon said that she was just trying to pay him back for what had happened at the restaurant in Paris. Ha-jin said it's fine. He wasn't too interested. Na-yeon couldn't believe it. She then asked him, "How about I buy you the full package?" But Ha-jin kept walking away as if he didn't hear her words. Seeing that, Na-yeon then tried to call him. She was still surprised by Ha-jin's words just now. She seemed to misunderstand this time. She felt that they couldn't go with just the two of them. On his way to the dormitory, Ha-jin wondered, should I buy Evangel a snack? But he was then surprised when he heard a conversation from someone nearby. It was a voice that was quite familiar to him. Ha-jin then walked over to check. The person turned out to be Tomer. She seemed to be asking someone on the phone for a down payment, but the person seemed to disagree with her request. It was because the person felt that she was incompetent in her mission. The thing she said would be completed within 2 weeks, but in fact it had not been completed for months. Tomer didn't know how to answer. Hearing that, the person on the phone continued to scold her. He scolded her for losing the items that the team leader sent to her. Tomer didn't argue. She then apologized to him. Ha-jin chuckled at that. He was the one who took it. Tomer then said that she really needed the money. She asked for a waiver just this one time, but the person on the phone then scolded her harshly. He felt that Tomer still didn't understand the situation. He told her to immediately complete her current mission and then come back. After saying that, he then hung up the phone. Tomer could only sigh helplessly at that. She felt that nothing had gone smoothly since she was here, but, as she was about to walk away, she was then surprised when she saw someone in front of her. Seeing Ha-jin in front of her, she wondered, how long has this person been here? Did he eavesdrop on my conversation? But Tomer wasn't too worried about that. After all, she didn't mention Jin at all in the conversation. She then told the Ha-jin who was blocking her way to move aside, and walked away from there. But Tomer then turned back to him when she heard Ha-jin offering to lend money. Her attitude really changed drastically from her previous cold attitude. Tomer also realized that. She felt a little embarrassed about it. While pretending to be calm, Tomer then asked him, "Did you hear that? Forget it, you don't even know how much I need." Hearing that, Ha-jin then asked her, "You are a mage, right?" mages can find money easily if they want, just make an IOU, and I will lend you money. Tomer smiled dismissively hearing that. She felt that Hajin was not able to offer a loan amount of what she needed. Seeing that, Hajin then took out something from his pants pocket. He said that his appearance might be ordinary, but he had quite a lot of money. Time passed, we finally arrived when the practical exam finally began. In the duel arena number 2, the first practical exam, team battle, was being held there at this time. The rules were similar to the individual duel in the last semester, the only difference was that this was a team match, on the first day. In the first match, Rachel's team became the attack team, while the team that became the defense team was Yohei's team. After Hajin and his team were in the arena and observed the surrounding terrain, he saw many obstacles there. This is a fairly favorable terrain for people like him. Rachel as the team leader then gave orders to them, me and Jin Ho-sung will be the front, the rest will slowly follow and provide assistance. After saying that, she then invited them to move now, but she was then surprised when she saw Hajin suddenly jumped up and perched on a tree. Seeing that, Rachel then confusedly called him, while smiling broadly at her. Hajin then told her to go ahead, he would cover from above. Hearing that, Rachel immediately knew what Hajin wanted to do. He planned to secure the high ground. Rachel then said she would leave that to him. After that, Rachel's group then began to move. Hajin followed his team's movements by jumping from tree to tree. With a higher position than the others made him able to observe the surrounding area more clearly, but he was then surprised when he felt something darting towards his team. Realizing that, Hajin then immediately aimed his gun towards the arrow that shot. His shot managed to split the arrow into two and managed to stop its progress. Hajin then jumped to a nearby tree and looked at his surroundings vigilantly. He realized the fact that there was a sharpshooter meant that there were most likely other team members nearby. Among them, the most likely person to be at the front was. Hajin then confusedly looked at the person was certainly Yohei. Hajin's confusion was very natural, because Yohei was acting very relaxed at this time. Hajin really didn't know what he was thinking. Seeing that, he wondered, what was wrong with him? Even with a sharpshooter nearby, wasn't he too open? And plus, Yohei's current opponent was, but Yohei didn't seem at all worried about it. While lying under the tree, he then hummed a song. The Wanderer, he who wandered freely, like the wind. And when Rachel finally arrived in front of him and slashed her rapier at him, Yohei then quickly reacted, and blocked her slash. Hajin was surprised to see Yohei was able to parry Rachel's slash, but Rachel wasn't alone this time. Ho-sung then called out to her. Hearing that, Rachel immediately moved out of the way, allowing Ho-sung to land a surprise attack on Yohei. The impact of the three of them clashing was devastating. Hajin was surprised at how intense the fight was, but what surprised him even more was that even with Rachel and Jin Ho-sung attacking together, they still couldn't defeat him. Hajin was confused and shocked at that fact. He wondered if Yohei had always been this strong. Not only Hajin, Ho-sung himself was also surprised to see Yohei being able to match him and Rachel. He wondered, is this some kind of magic buff? Hajin also thought so. He thought he knew their formation now. Yohei dispels enemies at the front, and sharpshooter helps with shots from the middle, and at the very back, the mage gives all the magic and mana buffs to Yohei. Then the warrior and support protect the mage like an iron wall. This is the classic one-man team Yohei strategy. Although this is a basic strategy, but even Hajin admits that this is a pretty good formation for the defensive team. But he certainly knew how to counter this formation. He just needed to target their mage. After thinking about that, Hajin then immediately jumped from one tree to another to look for the whereabouts of Yohei's group mage. After a while, he finally found them, and as he thought, the mage was indeed being heavily guarded now. And while Hajin was observing them secretly, the warrior seemed to realize his existence. He then immediately told his teammates, especially the sharpshooter where Hajin was. Hajin was surprised to see that, while avoiding the attacks thrown at him, he wondered, is my infiltration talent that bad? The warrior was quite confused when he saw him. He was confused what he was planning to do for daring to come there alone as a sharpshooter, but Hajin certainly wouldn't answer his confusion. He then immediately fired his gun at them. Seeing that, they then immediately shielded their bodies from his barrage of shots. Seeing that, Hajin then dropped down, and ran around them to find an opening while continuing to shoot at them. While defending themselves from Hajin's barrage of shots, a support then asked the mage about his condition. The mage told him not to worry, this was not a problem. After running for a while, Hajin then arrived at the top of a cliff. He really hit himself well, but still, he felt he should be able to shoot him easily from above. Seeing Hajin on the cliff, the support then told the warrior that he could handle this. Hearing that, the warrior then immediately ran fast towards Hajin. Seeing that, Hajin realized that he planned to defeat him alone, but he didn't feel worried about it at all. In a place filled with obstacles like this, it was impossible for him to keep up, and sure enough, the warrior couldn't even land a single attack on him. Seeing that, the support was annoyed with the warrior. He asked, "Can't you even catch up with him?" He felt that this was really getting annoying. While forming some kind of hand seal, he then concentrated and muttered, "Unite." Right after that, some kind of floating shields then appeared around him. The mage was surprised to see that, not stopping there. The floating shields then moved closer to each other, and united into a sphere. Hajin was surprised to see that, in that moment of distraction, the warrior then rushed forward to attack him again, but his attack was again avoided by Hajin. Hajin then looked towards the shields that were now united to form the ball, although the shields looked like an impregnable fortress now, but Hajin did not feel worried at all. No matter how many they were, shields were just shields. With his sharp eyes, he could see it clearly, the weak point. Right after Hajin fired his gun, a scream then sounded from inside the shields. Hearing that, Yohei then anxiously immediately turned his head towards the sound of the scream. Feeling that the buff magic that had enveloped him earlier was gone, Yohei then frantically tried to call out to the mage, but he got no answer at all, because the mage had passed out at this time. Right after that, an announcement was then heard: Yohei team mage, Yu Suhwan, was disqualified. Yohei was then surprised to hear that. Why? Looking at the mage, Hajin then thought, he wouldn't have lost in one shot if he had a barrier covering his body. His mistake was trying to save mana. After waking up from their shock, Yohei's team members then called him a coward. Hajin was a little speechless hearing that. He then said, "Come on, who are you calling a coward? This is just a strategy." After that, Rachel and Hozung then returned to attack Yohei, but different from before. Yohei looked overwhelmed in blocking their attacks now. He also felt his mana being drained so quickly. After a while, Yohei then could only wait for their next attack with a trembling body. He felt he was finished now. He had run out of energy. Not only Yohei, his other teammates were also struggling now. The sharpshooter was frightened when she saw Tomer bombarding her with magic. As for the warrior and the support, they were still playing chase with Hajin at this time. They couldn't do anything to him at all. Thus, the result of the first team battle, won by Rachel's team with a unanimous victory. After finishing their practical exam, they then gathered and chatted together. They seemed to be in a good mood at the moment. Rachel then came over and happily praised their good work. Seeing her, then also praised her good work. Seeing the big smile on Rachel's face, Hajin felt that she seemed to be in a good mood now. Her voice and hand movements were different from usual. Rachel then turned to him, and said, "Especially you, Hajin, we managed to win because you defeated their mage." Hajin was a little embarrassed to hear that. Apologizing, he said that it was a decision he made on his own, but they didn't seem to mind it at all. While putting his arm around his shoulders, Hozung then said to him, "If you had failed, you'd be a troll, but since you succeeded, you're a hero." Bakyu also said that he was really surprised earlier. He said that he would get the mage's head. He thought he was Guan Yu before. After chatting for a while, they then left respectively. After hearing the praise from his teammates, Hajin wondered, did I work too hard earlier? But, just as Hajin was about to walk away from there, Nayeon suddenly called him from behind. She said that Soho told her to tell him that he had fought well. Hajin was then confused to hear Soho told Nayeon to do such a thing. Nayeon confirmed it. His team had just started the match at this time. Regarding the match earlier, Nayeon then asked him, "When you fired your gun, the bullet turned right, how did you do that?" Hearing that, Hajin only replied that this was his talent. Nayeon pouted hearing that was a boring explanation. While yawning boredly, Nayeon said that she wanted to fight immediately, but unfortunately her match was still later in the afternoon and evening. Hearing that, Hajin only answered half-heartedly. While Hajin was looking around, he then saw someone nearby, more precisely, two people. They were Yu Yona and Shin Jonghak, but Shin Jonghak's mood seemed to be bad at the moment. He was not happy to see him talking to Nayeon. His gaze seemed to want to kill him at the moment. Seeing his gaze, Hajin confusedly thought, was he acting in a thriller movie or what? Not only Hajin, Nayeon also saw the two of them. she then called Jonghak, and confusedly asked him, "Why are you staring at us?" Hearing that, Shin Jonghak's mood immediately changed 180 degrees. He then smiled broadly at her, with a fawning tone like a dog. Jonghak said that he was staring at anyone. Seeing that, Hajin felt that Jonghak really had strange tastes, not caring about him anymore. Hajin then asked Yona, "Are you on your way to your match?" Yona confirmed it. Her team was next. Hearing that, Hajin then whispered to her, 5.56mm bullets, about 600 rounds. Yona was then shocked to hear that. She then asked him, "Why are you suddenly talking about assault rifle bullets now?" Hajin said that he thought he would need them later. Yona was silent for a moment. Hearing that, she then asked, "You know that magic bullets cost 200,000 won per unit, right?" Hearing that, Hajin just said that 120 million won is not a big deal. "Don't tell me that it is impossible for you. I will be disappointed if you really think so." Yona chuckled at that. "Of course not, don't try to hurt my pride." She then asked him if there was anything else he needed. Hajin replied no. He only needed bullets. He thanked her. Yona then remembered something. She said, "About the ginseng, it looks like the elixir will be ready within 2 weeks." Hajin was surprised to hear that. "Really?" Yona confirmed it, but she suddenly looked a bit hesitant at the moment. Seeing that, Hajin then asked, "Do you want to ask if I still have stock?" Yona cleared her throat embarrassedly. Seeing Hajin knowing her thoughts, she said she thought it would take some time to find another supplier. Hearing that, Hajin then said, "I can't promise I will get it, but, if I manage to get it, let's barter with some of your pharmaceutical company stocks. Do you agree?" Yona happily agreed to that. She then said she would leave it to him then. Meanwhile on the other side, Jonghak was questioning Nayun at this time. He asked, "Why are you being so friendly with someone like him?" Nayun was then confused by his question. Jonghak said, "Don't tell me that you have forgotten, you are the one who said that you don't like him." Nayun immediately panicked. Hearing that, she then immediately said that it was just a misunderstanding. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, Yona then asked Hajin not to take it seriously. Jonghak just didn't know him very well. While waving his hand, Hajin told her not to worry. He said that he had no problem with it at all. Since they had finished talking, he then said he would leave now. To be honest, he was not very happy, but it was just the role given to him. Shin Jonghak was a descendant of the prime minister who served the king in ancient times. He was also the grandson of Shin Myungchul, the great hero who saved South Korea after the outcall happened, so it was only natural that he was proud of his lineage and status. Although, his grandfather, Shin Myungchul, after a while, Hajin then arrived at the dormitory. Just as he opened the door, he then called Evangel. Hearing his call, Evangel then happily immediately ran towards him. Seeing her, Hajin then asked her, "Nothing important happened, right? Are you hungry or?" But, Hajin then was surprised when he looked towards Evangel. Seeing Evangel who was crying, Hajin then confusedly asked, "What happened?" While sobbing loudly, Evangel repeatedly mentioned Whitey's name. While showing her palm with scratch marks, she then cried loudly and said that Whitey scratched her. Seeing the small wound on Evangel's palm, Hajin could only remain silent, although Hajin was quite upset at this time. But he then recalled the first rule of being a parent: never show if you are upset with your child. After calming down, Hajin then held Evangel and tried to calm her down. He asked, "Why did you get scratched?" Evangel continued to cry. She said that she didn't know, she hated Whitey. Whitey is bad, she didn't even do anything. Hearing that, Hajin wondered, did she mean that Whitey scratched her for no reason? A few days ago when they took Whitey to the vet, it was discovered that she has grade 4 in mana affinity. Animals with high mana affinity can recover quickly, live long, and are very intelligent. In short, they are considered spiritual beings. Such beings would not scratch Evangel for no reason. Realizing that, Hajin then scanned the room. Seeing the cat treats scattered on the table, Hajin then got a guess. He had told Evangel to give it to Whitey only once a day. Hajin then called Evangel and asked, "Why are there so many open packets of cat treats?" Evangel was just silent. Hearing that. Seeing that, Hajin then asked her, "Were you eating them?" Evangel immediately felt guilty. Hearing that, she then made an excuse. She said that she was just curious how good it tasted until Whitey liked it so much, she just wanted to try it a little. Hajin really couldn't think of. Hearing that, he now knew why Whitey was angry. He then told her not to do it again next time. Evangel sobbed hearing that, but, Hajin was then surprised when he suddenly heard a message notification sound from his smartwatch, and when he opened it, the message turned out to be from Rachel, who wished him a happy birthday. Hajin was confused and surprised to read that. Rachel sent a set of cakes and said that this was a gift from her. She praised his performance in today's match and invited him to go karaoke after the exam ended. Reading the message, Hajin then realized that today was his birthday. He had forgotten about it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Nayun was browsing her social media boredly at this time. Seeing Yona's post, Nayun muttered, "She's suddenly active on social media just because we finished one test." Seeing Yona's post taking pictures with her teammates, Nayun felt that Yona was close with her team members. She also thought she should also celebrate today's victory with her teammates, but after she thought about it again, she felt it was unnecessary. Their presentation was a mess. Why celebrate? She was still angry with them about it. On second thought, she also hadn't talked to Yona since then. To be honest, she realized that she was wrong at that time, but she was confused about how she could make up with her. Nayun was really dizzy about what she should say to her. She then paused for a moment after not being able to think of any plan. For now, she would start with simple things first, like liking her posts. As Nayun continued to scroll, she was then interested in one of the posts. Seeing Shin Jonghak's pose in the photo with his teammates, he wondered, are they gangsters or what? She didn't know when he would stop being childish. As Nayun continued scrolling, she then saw Soho's post, who was taking a photo with Hajin. Nayun wondered, is Soho doing this on purpose? Their faces are really not comparable. When she opened the comment section, she then saw Sung-ah, who commented on the post. While chuckling, she wondered, what is Sung-ah doing? She's being so obvious. But Nayun was suddenly silent at this time. She was bored scrolling. He wondered, do I have any messages I haven't read yet? And when she opened the messenger, she was then surprised. Hajin turned out to be today's birthday. Seeing that, Nayun thought maybe she should buy him a digital gift. She wondered, a cake should be enough, right? But she immediately rejected the idea. Nayun felt that if she wanted to give him something, she should give it in person. She suddenly stood up from her bed when thinking about it. Nayun felt that she was crazy for thinking of giving a gift in person. They were not even that close. This was really confusing for her. She decided not to give him a gift. She felt that a birthday greeting message should be enough, but after a few minutes passed, Nayun was then confused because Hajin did not reply to her message. After a few moments passed, Hajin finally replied to her message. He thanked her. Nayun was a little sullen with his short reply. She then annoyedly threw her smartwatch. She was annoyed that Hajin was acting cool like that to her. Time passed. With the end of the test on Thursday, all the exams finally ended. Hajin did not do well in the individual exam, but he got a good score in the team exam, so he managed to secure the 200 and above ranking that he had expected from the beginning. With that result, Hajin felt that he should be able to get a bigger room in the second year, but Hajin didn't really care about that now. It was not something he should think about now. Looking at the few items he put on the table, Hajin did not know if this was enough or not. He then put all the items into a large bag. It was a top-grade magic duffel bag that could hold up to 200 kilograms of items. After finishing putting all the items into the bag, Hajin then glanced at his smartwatch. He had just received a message from the cube announcing that the cube would be closed next week. When the cadets use the cadet card outside the cube, they can get a 70% discount on the usage fees. Reading the message, Hajin knew this was because there was an external investigation. Even if the investigators didn't find anything, the Jin infiltrating the cube shouldn't act too conspicuously for a while. The most important thing was the message. In the next part, next Thursday's field trip, held by the Jinsung Foundation, limited to the first-year cadet, availability will be on a first-come first-served basis. Field trip held by the Jinsung Foundation, that is the next main story. In this field trip, the main character will be captured by the wraiths of the past. It is an important artifact that will provide tremendous growth to everyone. Hajin thought that he had to make thorough preparations. In the midst of his struggling thoughts, Evangel then called him. She complained to him because Whitey had eaten her fried chicken. She looked very sad at this time. Seeing that, Hajin then asked her to calm down. Nothing will happen to Whitey. She is not a random cat. Hearing that, Evangel then cried again. She said that that was not what she meant. It was the last piece of fried chicken. Hajin could only sigh helplessly hearing that. So that's the problem. Time passed. In the afternoon near the girls' dormitory, seeing Hajin had come, Yona then gave a suitcase to him. It was the suitcase containing the bullets he had asked for earlier. Yona said that the suitcase had 900 bullets in it. Hajin then thanked her. He was quite surprised that Yona could get it that fast, but Yona's gift didn't end there. She then took something out of her pocket, and gave it to him. It was a wrist protector. Hajin was quite confused by it. Yona explained. I heard that the wrist is the weakest part when using a gun. Your birthday was last Monday. I wanted to give it to you on your birthday, but as you know, I'm quite busy because of exams these days. Hajin didn't mind that at all. He then thanked her once again. After finishing her business, Yona then waved her hand and said goodbye to him. Seeing that, Hajin also said goodbye to her. While looking at Yona who was now walking away, Hajin then smiled slightly. Of all people, he didn't expect to receive a gift from Yona, but when he looked at the clock nearby, he was then surprised and panicked. He didn't expect it to be this late. He would be late for his meeting. Hajin then immediately rushed away from there. After he finally arrived at the meeting place, Hyozong then greeted him. He turned out to be the last member to arrive. Hyozong then jokingly asked him, "You tried to come late because you were the main lead, right?" Hajin apologized. He had business to do before this. Seeing that all her team members had gathered, Rachel then invited them all to come in. After they went inside, they then heard various songs in the various rooms there. When Rachel curiously checked one of the rooms, she then saw a man who was singing there. While Rachel was happily observing the surroundings, Hozung himself was ordering them tickets now. The receptionist then told him that their room was number 17. After that, they both searched for the room number 17. Shortly after, they finally found it. Rachel looked full of anticipation at the moment. Hozung then invited them to enter. In contrast to the enthusiasm of the other team members, Hajin still looked flat at the moment, but, as he was about to follow his team members from behind, someone suddenly came out of the room next to him. It was Nayun. With a feeling of surprise, they then stared at each other. Seeing Hajin in front of her, Nayun was confused. Why was he here? She was also a little upset and anxious at the moment. She only wore casual clothes because she just wanted to have fun. In the middle of her struggle of thoughts, Hajin suddenly asked her, "Do you also want to have fun?" Nayun was a little surprised by his sudden question. She then confirmed that the written exam was over, and the others wanted to relax. "So we came here." Nayun then asked him, "Who did you come here with, and when?" She looked back to see the people who came with Hajin. She then froze for a moment when she saw Rachel there, but Nayun didn't feel so worried. She felt like Hajin came with his teammates. In the middle of her reverie, Hajin suddenly remembered something. He then asked her, "You're going on the Jinsung Foundation field trip, right?" Nayun was a little surprised by his question. She confirmed it. She asked, "Are you going too?" Hajin replied yes. "I don't have anything else to do, so I signed up for it." In the middle of their conversation, someone suddenly came out of the room next to them. The person said to Nayun that it was her turn. Hearing that, Hajin then walked away from there and said, "Let's talk again next time." Nayun understood. She then said goodbye to him. Before re-entering her room, Nayun glanced for a moment at Hajin who walked away. Just before Hajin entered the room, Hajin then heard the sound of music playing. He thought, "It's been a while since I've gone to karaoke. Back when I was in reality, I never frequented karaoke places much either." But, as Hajin was about to step in, he was then surprised when someone suddenly held him back. It was Hozung. With an unbearable face, Hozung called him and told him to run away from there. Hajin was then confused by that. Right after that, Hozung suddenly fell unconscious. Hajin was then confused by that. He asked, "What are you suddenly talking about?" And when he observed the room, it turned out that it was not only Hozung who fell unconscious, but the other members were also lying on the floor now, except for Rachel. Seeing Rachel who was holding a microphone, Hajin then remembered, realizing his existence. Rachel then turned to him. She was happy to see him back. Hajin's face immediately looked uncomfortable at this time. He just remembered that Rachel really liked to sing, and she's a terrible singer. Without realizing something, Rachel then continued her singing. Her singing sounded so loud that it could even break the glass of the room where they were. Hajin was really confused about what he was thinking about to be able to design her character like this. Time passed. Hajin was now in his dormitory, looking at the item in front of him. Hajin happily thought, "My plan to place the sapling's dust into the bracelet and give it to her is perfect," but, he was confused. How do I give this to Rachel? It was a normal bracelet that he bought on the internet but had been given an enchantment effect with sapling's dust. Originally, Rachel was supposed to awaken her trait later with Suho, but if Hajin wanted to reduce the gap between this story and the original, he needed to give it to her quickly, but Hajin was still confused. Even if he somehow managed to give this bracelet to her, just wearing the bracelet wouldn't activate her trait, while Hajin was deep in thought. He was then confused and surprised when he suddenly got a message from Rachel. Seeing that, he confusedly wondered, why did she message me? Hajin then opened the message. In the message, in a somewhat hesitant tone, Rachel asked her if he could teach her a little about how she could better control magic power. Hajin was then surprised to read that. He was confused why Rachel even asked him that, plus, he has a body that can't use mana. But, Hajin did not immediately reject her request. After thinking for a moment, Hajin felt that this was a good opportunity. After agreeing to Rachel's request, the two of them then made an appointment to meet near the men's dormitory. A few moments after Hajin waited for her arrival, he then heard the sound of someone calling him. The person was of course Rachel. Rachel was surprised to see him already there. There's still some time before they agreed to meet though. She thanked him for being willing to meet even though this was a sudden request. Hajin told her not to think about it. He happily thought that he was the one who should thank her. While embarrassedly scratching the back of his head, he then hesitantly asked her, "Is there really anything I can teach you though?" Hearing that, Rachel then asked him to please don't say that. She explained, she had reviewed the fight today and she became aware that there were still many areas that she could improve. She felt that if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't be able to get such good results. That was the reason why she asked him for this help, even though this was rude. Rachel then strengthened her heart, and asked him to please teach her, how she could become as strong as him. Hearing that, Hajin then said, "It sounds to me like you're saying you want to try out my training routine." Then, with a serious face, he then asked, "It'll be very tough though, will you be able to get through it?" Hearing that, Rachel determinedly replied, "Yes, I will." Hajin understood. He then sat in the lotus position and asked her, "Can you try sitting like I am?" Hearing that, Rachel then tried to sit like him, but, she seemed to have difficulty. Hajin did not seem to expect it. He then said to her, "If it's hard for you to sit like me, then you can just sit however is comfortable." But Rachel would not give up so easily. She said that she could do it and kept trying, until finally, she gave up. She really couldn't do it. While sitting in a Seiza position, Rachel then asked, "Is this alright?" Hajin said that it was okay. He then extended his hand towards her and asked her to extend her hand to him for a moment. Although Rachel felt confused, but she still agreed to his request. But, she was then surprised when Hajin suddenly inserted something into her wrist. It was a bracelet that had been enhanced with sapling dust. Hajin said that it was a small present from him. It should be able to help her. Hearing that, Rachel then hesitantly asked, "You're already going to be training me. Is it okay for me to accept a gift?" Hajin smiled at that. He said that it was just a normal bracelet, so he asked her not to worry about it. Hearing that, Rachel then thanked him. After successfully achieving one of his goals, Hajin then went to the next part. With a serious expression, he then told Rachel to straighten her body, and imagine as if someone was pulling her up slowly, starting from her cranium. Hajin also told her to breathe calmly. After that, he then told her to focus on the mana flow in her body, and direct them evenly from the tips of her hands to her toes. After doing all the things Hajin said, Rachel said that doing it felt more tiring than usual. Hajin smiled at that. He said that it meant she was doing it right. To be honest, Hajin found this meditation method on Xtube, but if it really works for her, that's what matters, right? He feels he has laid the foundation right. Ending his mind struggle, Hajin then went to the next part. He then told Rachel to try to circulate her mana starting from her left wrist. Hearing that, Rachel then asked, "Is it from the bracelet?" Hajin confirmed it. He told her to try to imagine the energy from the bracelet spreading throughout her body. Hearing that, Rachel then closed her eyes and focused on circulating it throughout her body. She then felt a familiar sensation. It felt like she had felt it before, but now it felt much more intense, as if nature itself was speaking to her. And when Rachel opened her eyes, she was then surprised when she saw various balls of light floating around her. When she saw the balls of light more clearly, she was then surprised to find out that they were spirits. Seeing that, Hajin then congratulated her for becoming a spirit summoner. Rachel herself still couldn't wake up from her shock at this time. She was really surprised when she saw the spirits gathered in her hands at this time. Seeing her shock, Hajin then asked, "Have you never taken a spirit affinity test before?" Rachel replied, "When I was a child, I took the test, and the results were good, but I gave up because I couldn't find the right way to train with spirits." Rachel was born with the talent and soul to use spirits, but, in this modern age, there is not much development in spirit nurturing methods, making it difficult for Rachel to awaken it herself. Hajin felt that the butterfly sapling dust that absorbed into Rachel's body must have acted as a bridge between her and the spirits. Rachel then called out to him. While looking at the spirits in her hands with affection, she then thanked him for helping her. She really thanked him. Hajin just smiled. At that, he said that he didn't do much. Hajin was happy to see her successfully awakening her trait. With this, he felt that Rachel should be able to grow much stronger without many problems from now on. But, Hajin was then confused when he saw Rachel's expression suddenly change. With a quick movement, Rachel then picked up her rapier, and made a movement as if she was about to slash towards him. Hajin, who saw it, then felt confused and panicked. Right after that, a very strong clash impact then appeared where they were standing. Hajin could only sit limply on the ground at this time. He then confusedly called Rachel, but Rachel did not intend to harm him. While looking in a direction, she then told him to be careful. There was someone targeting them. Hajin was then shocked to hear that. He then immediately turned his head in the direction Rachel meant. On the cliff not far from where the two of them were, a silhouette slowly appeared there. Hajin thought, there are not many people targeting me, so, their goal is not us. Instead, the person chuckled when he saw the two of them. He then said to Rachel, while you did throw an attack, seeing how you're unaware of who I am, I guess the spirits must have told you of my existence. When Rachel saw the person's face more clearly, she was then shocked. The person turned out to be Lancaster. With a condescending look directed at her, Lancaster then continued. Rachel, as usual, you still can't do anything by yourself. After saying that to Rachel, Lancaster then turned to Hajin, and told him to be better careful. The affection you show to Rachel will one day transform into a blade that turns on you. Rachel's face immediately paled when she heard that, but, Hajin was not shaken after hearing his warning. He then came forward and told him that it was none of his business. Seeing that, Rachel surprisedly called out to him, while looking towards Lancaster. Hajin continued, if all you wanted was to ambush us, you'd have attacked while we were defenseless. Why are you going this far to harass Rachel? What are you after?